This City of Shelton City Commission meeting is called to order. I want to welcome each one of you here. Mayor's gone on personal business, and so I'm acting mayor. It's kind of a scary thing, but anyway, I hope Gary and is going to be okay. But anyway, so I would like to call for the commission reports. And first, we're going to have Mason County Historical Society.
Hi, my name is Kristen Fabry. I'm the director of Mason County Historical Society. I'm going to give our third quarter lodging tax report. We'd like to thank the City of Shelton for its continued support of the Mason County Historical Society Museum. We've had many updates and new programs this last quarter. In July, we invited Mason County Historical Society members to attend a tour of the Crosby House in Tumwater. There is a small turnout for the event, however, we are grateful to the Daughters of the Pioneers for hosting the tour. We were able to see a newly added miniature model replica of the house with incredible room-by-room detail. In July, we also began fundraising to aid with the repair and maintenance of newly acquired Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox statues. In August, we continued our fundraising for Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox by hosting a potluck picnic at Neyland Park. Paul and Babe were brought out for the event with about 30 in attendance. In August, we received a $5,000 grant from the Historic Preservation Commission to transfer newly donated 16mm film containing footage of historical logging operations, forest festival parades, and railroad operations to a digital format that will be available at the museum for viewing to be shown at future events. We look forward to the completion of this project as it will add previously unseen video footage to our archives. In August, we also started work on our bathroom remodel, which is the final step in our downtown remodel project. The new bathrooms will offer easier handicap access with new flooring, sinks, toilets, and handrails. On September 17th, we met at Polson Museum for a tour. This out-of-county event did not produce the turnout we wanted, unfortunately, so we'll be limiting our 2017 events to Mason County. In September, we began preparing our next year's events. Staff and volunteers continue to work on our digital inventory. We now have over 26 years of our inventory entered into the digital format. We also welcome 2 new volunteers that have been continuing work on that project, as well as scanning and obituaries to our computer archives. Currently, we're working on an application for a 2017 museum assessment through the American Alliance of Museums, in which a consultant will assess the care and storage of our collection. A museum assessment will allow easier access to state and federal grants. The museum staff and volunteers continue to aid museum visitors with information about our exhibits, assistance with genealogical research, writing historical articles for the Mason County Journal, and putting together our monthly newsletter and rotating exhibits. In the last quarter, we received 682 visitors, with 120 from out of town, 65 from out of state, and 9 from out of the country.
You're always so busy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we will have the, we'll have Shelley Willis going to present a presentation about the Family Education and Support Services. We want to welcome you.
Had a new knee. I'm still getting used to it.
Oh, good.
Shelley Willis, Family Education and Support Services, and we've been serving Mason County now for 16 years, but you really don't know us unless you are served by us. So I wanted to make sure you knew us. We have been very grateful for United Way sharing their space with us, and we have been providing parenting classes at their facility on Thursday nights, and for men on Saturday mornings, and here at the Civic Center on Saturdays for parents who are going through divorce or domestic violence. And we have a new program in Mason County called PCAP, and that's for women who are pregnant and have an addiction, and we work very closely with BHR in their Harvest program. We provide a wide array of parenting classes, support groups, kinship and foster parenting programs for the community. And we have a new office beginning October 1 at the Transit Center. So we just wanted you to know that we're there. On November 5th, Saturday, we'll be working with the Mason Early Childhood Coalition to put together a Family Fun Day event where all kinds of family-serving organizations will be gathering together to share resources in the community. Invite you to come, and we're here. That's all.
Do you have any questions?
I don't. I actually asked my questions earlier, but it's nice to see you here, Shelley. Thank you.
Very happy to
Can
be
you
here.
tell me what PCAP stands for?
Parent-Child Advocacy Program.
Okay.
It's funded through DBHR, and it allows us to stick with a woman for 3 years to help make sure she doesn't use when she's pregnant, or when she's pregnant not use.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
You know, I forgot to ask if there was any questions from the historical, if we had any questions we wanted to
No.
ask.
No.
I have a question. Sure. So you said the Paulson House was what was the place you went and visited that was in it?
Yeah, we went to the Paulson Museum
And where's that?
in Hoquiam.
Hoquiam, okay, all right. Is that up on the hill?
Yeah, they have a large donated old mansion on the hill and several of their outbuildings.
Okay, I think I've been there before. It's really neat.
Yeah, it's
Really
really
cool.
neat operation over there.
Okay, thank you very much. Next would be the United Way presentation, presented by Police Chief Darren Moody and United Way of Mason County Executive Director, Ms. Carrie Lemon.
Thank you for having me. So my name's Carrie Lemon. I'm the director of United Way. United Way has been serving Mason County for 50 years, working with several nonprofit organizations, providing programs and tools for individuals. When we work together, great things happen, and I have a perfect example of this. So in August, our community came together for the biggest day of caring Mason County has seen yet. Tracy Moore was a big player in this, so thank you very much. We had 293 volunteers working over 2,000 hours. We had several of volunteer teams and projects that were accomplished this day. We had one that stuck out in particular, and if you are in Mason County or have been here for more than a year, everybody knows about it. So along with the partnerships of the city and Mason County, Mason County Garbage, we were able to do a city dump day where individuals could bring items to get rid of. There was not a single item that we declined. We took everything. We had a huge list here: 8 large appliances, 10 mattresses, 9 pieces of furniture, 800 pounds of yard waste, 4 truckloads of metal, over 20 TVs, tires, 16 shopping carts. Most were returned to stores. And over 24,000 pounds of garbage that was dumped. So we cleaned up one of the biggest, obviously, properties. And while that was taking place, a little girl from one of the houses next door had come over and thanked one of the volunteers, actually it was our president, Dan Cooling, and said, "Thank you so much, our family feels safer now because of that cleanup." The city has also partnered with United Way in our annual campaign, and this is why we are here today. Several city employees take advantage of easy payroll deduction and supporting the work that we're doing in Mason County. We encourage everyone to get involved in this movement because, again, when we work together, when we live united, great things happen. So what's in it for you? Besides the great feeling of supporting the community that you live in, we all need tax deductions. We also have a matching fund sponsor, so for any new or increased donations, we're getting a match of that, and Green Diamond is supporting that. As well as Seahawks tickets. If you're not a fan, I don't know who they're playing that day, but you might be a fan of that team. Don't admit it if you aren't. The best part about United Way is that you guys decide where the money goes. So not only can you designate your money to a nonprofit of your choice, but you can also come together with the committee that decides where the money goes. So they review the grant applications and they decide which organization best fits the needs of our community, and that's where the money goes. So we can all accomplish what we put our minds to. On behalf of United Way and the Board of Directors, we have big dreams for this community, but we need your support to make it happen. So thank you for having us. Is there any questions?
So I'm here because I'm on the United Way board, and I told Carrie that I would help her in leading by example and giving these to our commissioners so that they can start. I'll let you give the mayor here. And this one's for the city manager. Because, like I said, a lot of us give donations to different functions and things, but it was really neat to see United Way in this community doing the cleanup that they did, rather than going outside.
Very
So I'll
good.
collect those later on.
But it's got our name on it.
Yeah.
Oh, the collection, the form, oh, I see,
And
okay.
if you have any questions about that, please let us know. Contact our office, stop by. But we've got a lot more to come, I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Any
I,
questions?
I would just like to say, these look great.
They do.
Thank
They
you.
look fabulous.
All the bright
I was an employee of United Way for a number of years, and I'm a total advocate. I love United Way. United Way does great things throughout, not just our local, but everywhere. And so this is great. I love it. I'll hand it to you later.
Strong arm us, huh?
Yeah,
Lead by example.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I want to re-thank Kristen and Shelley and the police chief and Carrie for coming and sharing today with us. You share a lot of information that a lot of us don't know, and this is a great place to learn. So thank you very much. Okay, we will have our weekly commission report from our commissioners, which is you and me today. You
Okay.
can go first.
Well, I left my calendar at home. So what I will do is tell you what I did last week. I missed last week's commission meeting. I was in Wenatchee for an infrastructure funding conference I go to every year, where we have an opportunity to meet with the various state funders, different entities. And my main focus was I did a tech team presentation about the importance of maintaining the Simpson Railroad and acquiring the Roundhouse for a museum. I will say that I had an amazing response. It was kind of funny because by the time it came to my presentation, which was on the third day, is pretty much everybody I think had heard of it. So it was awesome. A gentleman who's been helping me on a volunteer basis, Ed Burnson, was there as well. He helped me with the presentation and also helped answer the technical questions that people had at that point, because I'm still a little shy on railroad speak. I've learned a lot, but I was a little less fluent in that than he was. I also would like to announce too, I see in our looking forward that we have an update the end of the month, is that I also am, we have the volunteer services of a retired project manager too. So he has recently put together 2 draft business and project plans for us to adapt to however we need to use those, or whatever changes we need to make. And so it's sounding really good. I'm very excited, and I no longer hear eyes roll when I start talking about it, and instead I hear the choo-choo train. But very excited. Stay tuned. That's what I did last week. I also learned about a lot of the funding opportunities that we have not taken advantage of, that we may be able to take advantage of for some of our upcoming projects. And it's a great opportunity for networking to make sure that people are aware that Shelton is here, Shelton is moving forward, and that we are becoming the city that everyone should want to move to. And this week I'm busy, but I'm sorry, I cannot tell you exactly where I'm going to be.
Thank you. Quiet week for me. Wednesday morning, I have my Memorial Hall meeting, and we are going to be putting some policy in for the safety and the use of the building. There's sometimes the doors don't get locked, and kids are caught skateboarding in the wee hours of the night, and they put finished a brand new wood floor, and they ruined it with their skateboard, and so they just don't have any policy to keep the building safe. And it's historical building. So anyway, we're going to be working on that. So that's where I'll be Wednesday morning. And I'll be popping in and out of the election office from now until the elections and just watching the ballots come in and what they do with them until they get ready to run them through the machine on voting day. So that's kind of fun to do. A little boring sometimes, but it gives you some education.
I haven't ever done that.
Yeah, just go in and it's kind of interesting. Anyway, and so that is it for me. Quiet week. So now we're going to have general public comment. Has anyone signed in to want to speak today?
No one has signed in.
No one has signed in. Okay, then we will move on. We are now going to have the consent agenda read. And are you ready
Yes.
to read it? Okay.
Okay, the consent agenda, resolution number 1093-1016, the Shelton Public Works Department surplus vehicles, and the tourism fund applications.
Um,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
And I second that. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Passed. Were we supposed to vote on any of that this week?
The tourism
Yeah,
applications?
no.
They were placed on the consent agenda as requested. Tracy, you saw the applications?
Yes, I read
Yes.
those, yes.
And did you have any
Questions
feedback
about
other
those?
than full funding as was recommended?
Yes, I did, and I suppose I should disclose I am on the, on the Downtown Visioning Committee, but I am not swayed by that. I can make a decision without bias. So
We did
yes.
have 4 members at the advisory committee meeting, and all 4 made the recommendation that we fund that so we could get some signage out there on 101. So I think
And-
that was a good application, and the committee was in favor of that.
It has been a goal for many of the groups. That has been a goal for some time, so I think that is a very valid use of those funds.
Good, thank you.
So we didn't need to vote on either one of these?
It was on the consent
Okay.
agenda, so what will happen is we will tell the finance committee that the commission gave the green light on the funding, and they will embed that in the budget that's presented, the preliminary budget that's presented at the end of this month.
Okay, and also the surplus vehicle, we didn't need to vote on that. That was,
Nope.
okay, very good. Okay, and now there is no old business, but we do have some new business. We are going to have Mark, our fearless park manager, come and share, Eagle Point.
Thank you, Commissioners. Today I have the pleasure of presenting you a briefing on the acquisition of Eagle Point. The city has the unique opportunity to receive this piece of property for recreational purposes on Oakland Bay. The Eagle Point property will meet several of our goals identified in our parks and recreation plans over the last 25 years, including trails and water access. The Port of Shelton has recently declared the property as surplus. Grant funds have been committed from the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office Salmon Recovery Enhancement Fund and Federal Coastal Wetlands Grant. Sponsoring agencies include the South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group and the Squaxin Island Tribe, and the Capital Land Trust is managing the transaction. The proposed acquisition would be a unique addition to the city's parks inventory, offering easy shallow cove for launching canoes, kayaks, and other small non-motorized boats in Oakland Bay. The acquisition would actually meet 3 of the top community desires in our existing Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan, including water access, walking trails, and nature trails. And this actually would meet the top 3 categories in the old plan back from 1998 as well.
Yay.
So we're talking about priorities in our community that have been around and been documented for some time. The addition of 8 upland acres would also help meet the City of Shelton's adopted level of service standard in our parkland, which is at 5 acres per 1,000 residents. So that would certainly be a nice piece of property to help whittle away at that level of service standard. This will be the first and only public waterfront access really to Oakland Bay. strictly the city can provide. We have some down at the marina, but it really doesn't provide access from the property. It's really only docks. The community has strong ties to the bay, obviously, being the sole reason that Shelton was established in 1890. It's a total of 14 acres, 8 acres of uplands, about 1,600 feet of coastline or shoreline on Oakland Bay. Tidelands that host shellfish, an important foraging habitat for coho, steelhead, and cutthroat salmon that spawn in Goldsboro Creek. Natural wooded setting that offers the opportunity for beachcombing, picnicking, viewing marine wildlife, marine traffic in and out of Shelton's historic working waterfront, and wonderful views of Mount Rainier. I think you have some pictures in your packet there of the views and the overhead of the property itself. Today I'm presenting to you a resolution authorizing the funding sources for the city to be recognized as co-sponsor with the Recreation and Conservation Office, and a purchase and sale agreement between the city and the port to be approved. This is a unique process, I should say, whereas the city wasn't the requesting agency for grant funds. These grant funds were actually requested by the Salmon Enhancement and Recovery Group, as well as Squaxin Island Tribe. They received those grant funds through the funding agencies that I recognized earlier, but they don't want to be the landowners. They don't want to be the long-term landowners, so they're providing this opportunity to the city, really at no charge. At no charge, not really at no charge, at no charge. So closing costs, purchase price, and everything would be covered within the grant funding itself. So we're really receiving this property essentially for free. There are some deed restrictions long-term because of the grant funding. The coastal wetlands grants and the salmon recovery enhancement grants do put deed restriction on the property, so it can be developed to certain standards, but we can really develop that to what is most useful for the property, which is passive recreation trails, getting to the near shore, potentially launching non-motorized watercraft and things like that, and just experiencing that property for what it is. Excuse me. Staff is recommending that the resolution and the purchase sale agreement be placed on the old business for November 7th when we come back and answer any questions that the community might have or the commission, and then we can move forward with hopefully the closing of this property by the end of the year with the assistance from Capital Land Trust. Lawrence Reeves is here if you have any questions for him at this time as well.
Can I ask how much the grant is for?
The purchase price is $152,000.
Okay.
There will be some, obviously, closing costs and things like that are yet to be determined how much the total compensation would be for the purchase.
Very
of
good.
the
I'm
property as
excited.
well.
Some kayaking and some other things going on out there.
This has been one of those projects that we've been hearing about and waiting for about 5 years now, I think, since I've heard of it. So
Potentially longer than that. We actually applied before both of you were on the commission, applied for RCO grant funding a number of years ago and had some success in that funding, and then some other outside issues came up that had to move in a different direction. So it's nice that this project can come to fruition today.
I am just thrilled.
Excited.
Now, one of the things I'm wondering though, and I read this and I could have missed it, but this drawing shows the boardwalk, the parking, the restroom facility, all that. Are those things that the city would be doing later, or is that part of the grant and this project?
Development would take place later, yeah. The map you see there is an example of what could happen on the property. So it's simply an idea to give the commission what the property could develop into and how it could lay out. This is strictly an acquisition piece,
Okay.
so we go back through a public process later on down the road, like we have with really all of our parks, and seeing what the community wants,
Yeah.
what would fit into the natural environment there, and how we'd progress forward with development.
Oh, I am just thrilled. I'm so excited, and I'm eager to see this go through.
Is there going to be, I've heard that might be a plan of a walking trail from the marina area around to Eagle Point, or is that not a possibility with SPI being there?
It certainly isn't something that we're developing through the Parks Department, the Citizens Advisory Committee. I've heard that discussed, as an interest, but you certainly have a private landowner that takes up
Right.
a large portion of that property
Sure.
to work with.
Sure. Okay.
And I think we've identified that it would be a nice partner plan to enhance the David Shelton Pear Orchard and that boardwalk when that happens, and then down Front Street. So there would be much more connectivity in the way of hiking, so I'm excited.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Appreciate
other
it.
questions?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope.
Mayor Pro Tem McDowell, may I have a go back?
You may.
I believe that maybe what you were asking me a minute ago was, do we need to vote on this? And we would need a motion and approval of the consent agenda. I think that we didn't get a motion in a
Okay,
second.
so we need to make a motion to put that on the consent
Did we
agenda.
have a motion and a
No, we
consent?
didn't.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, to put it on the
Oh, okay,
consent
I'm
agenda?
sorry.
No, wait a second. No, wait.
No.
We approved the consent agenda.
Yes, we didn't do
Oh,
the.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought
Yeah.
maybe I missed that.
That's okay.
When
I'm
you
going.
asked me if you needed
Okay.
to vote on it, I thought maybe I missed that. Okay,
Yeah.
well, never mind.
That's okay. Thank you for checking there. Next, we are going to have, presented by our Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, the Capital Project Lake Boulevard Road Restoration Final Acceptance.
Thank you,
That's a big
Commissioners.
word. Yeah.
Public Works staff is requesting final acceptance of the Lake Boulevard project. And I won't get into a lot of detail right now with this. We will be touching in much more detail later on in the meeting under Public Works projects. So if we can wait until that point, we will have much more detail for you.
Yeah.
But we're looking for final acceptance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the administration reports. So we have directors, CED Director, Mr. Jason Does.
Acting
Acting
Director, I believe.
Community and Economic Development Update. I'm sorry, it wasn't in there, acting.
Oh, that's all right.
I'll write it in there.
I appreciate that.
Interim it
title.
says. So,
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Is it Acting Mayor?
Pro tem.
Pro tem.
Mayor Pro Tem McDowell and Commissioner Moore.
Yeah.
As an update, you haven't been hearing much from community development lately. We've been kind of, with some of the staffing changes, we've been working on, our internal processes, trying to get a handle on workload. And I think we're at a point now where you're going to start seeing some motion, particularly with that Department of Commerce grant that we had as a pass-through. Senator Shelton got a large chunk of that for us, helped process the Sierra Pacific permits, so we're still working on the tail end of that. We're still using some of the funds for that. It helped with some of the water modeling that helped facilitate the mill site reconstruction, but also our comprehensive plan pending update, the EIS that's going on with that. It's also funding a good portion of the comprehensive plan EIS that I'm hoping to break what I'm calling the mega log jam on. I haven't really had a chance to work on it much in the last couple months. And what you'll be seeing coming forward in fairly short order is what I'm hoping to be a contract amendment, an extension, and a slight expansion so I can get the consultant we've already hired for a good portion of the push to help me wrap that up and move it forward. That'll be coming to you at a later date, probably the next couple weeks. The Railroad Avenue corridor study, which we entered contract with a consultant in June, I believe. We're looking to have kind of begin the public push, as it were, the public portion where we actually have sit-down meetings with members of the public, provide some visuals for people to look at just on conceptual ideas for the Railroad Avenue corridor. That'll be happening after the holidays. I've been talking with the consultant over the last few weeks.
Okay.
They met one time so far with the Downtown Visioning Committee. We think it's a good idea that maybe they keep kind of checking in with them month to month. So they're going to be attending those meetings monthly, as will I from this point forward. So yeah, look for that after the holidays. I would have liked to have done it before, but we're just thinking we're going to miss too many people once the holiday shuffle comes, so we're going to do the big push just after the holidays. And
Good idea.
I'll definitely telegraph that at the commission level before we schedule anything. Early to mid last month, I came to you guys with kind of an update on building permit activity, so I kind of wanted to add on to that. As of today, I had Nicole compile the numbers, basically add on what you saw last month. We've got a total of 316 building permits in to date. That compares with 305, so we're right on par with what we did last year. But the, kind of the scale of them are a little bit different this year. And the example I'll give you is to date, we have 10 new houses in for review, which is a huge increase from 2 last year. We have a total of 8 commercial buildings, which is an increase over 2 from last year. Admittedly, though, the mill site takes up a majority of those new buildings. Fred Meyer added a gas station, but the newest new one we just got in for review is a 4,500 square foot commercial building that'll finish out the Neyland Plaza development. A lot of people don't know there's been 1 lot left up there to develop all these years. Little difficult to develop in its size and some of the easements that encumber it, but we think we found a way, and that's in for building permit review now. Pre-subs, we've had several since I talked to you last. I won't bore you with the details, but there's been 8 of them. 3 are for residential, and if you built out every single lot talked about during those, there'd be 41 additional lots in town. And definitely ask questions on those if you want. We had 4 commercial and 1 what I'll call civic. We're going to be reviewing the parking lot for MTA here in the next couple weeks. This is the pass-through grant the city's managing for the Conservation District to design and help build a parking area over by the Radish Building, if you're familiar with that, on Railroad Avenue. The last couple months, we've been, like I said, working a lot on process and procedures in our department. With the changes in staffing, we started finding some holes in our review, as it were. So we're working on those. We've streamlined our business license process, rather. And this week, we're going to be talking building permits and kind of ensuring everybody knows their roles and responsibilities for different phases. Because now that we've had, Public Works carries a lot of the weight in reviewing building permits. With all the staffing changes, I'll just leave it at that. We've identified a few holes, and we're going to fix them. And that'll begin on Thursday. Just to telegraph what I'm hoping, once we get our staffing levels back to normal, I'm going to be advocating that we come to you for at least a minor amendment to our development standards as they relate to frontage improvements, specifically relating to short plats. We've had a couple of pre-subs in the recent past that the improvements required seem a little out of scale with what's proposed, and we want to try to find a way to fix that, as it were. And I know Commissioner Moore had asked about this last time I was in front of the commission, but now both of those I-502 growing operations are in for building permit now. They have both submitted, and they're both under process now.
Good.
And that is all I really had for you at this time.
I had some questions, and I don't know if you have these figures available, but I'm just curious as to what the actual revenue has come in for the building permits and a comparison of what that revenue would have been if we were under the old fee schedule.
Strictly relating to our CEDs end of it, this doesn't account for GFCs, which are water and sewer improvement charges. This is just building permit, plan review, and permit fees. We're a little bit over $36,000 below what we would have taken in based on the fee reductions. And the total, I don't even have the total, I'm sorry. So roughly $36,000 that the fee reductions resulted in.
Is that is all of the planning fees?
Mm-hmm.
That's everything.
Just
That's the building
the building
and
side
plan review.
that deals with plan check / review and the literal permit fees.
Okay.
And I apologize, I don't have all the figures.
Yeah, I thought you would have a whole rundown.
I can get that.
I would be very interested in knowing that because we are scheduled to take another look at that issue in the new year.
Fair enough.
So it would be interesting because that doesn't seem like a lot of money for all of the commercial buildings.
That's, like I said, that's just building permits.
Oh.
So there's I don't even want to guess because it'll get printed in the press.
Yeah.
I don't even want to guess at what the fee is for GFCs, but it's considerably higher for the
Yeah.
utility ends of it.
So could we get those numbers and have another update
Certainly.
soon? That
Yeah.
would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Next, we'll have Mark Ziegler again, and he's going to give us a Shelton Parks and Recreation update. Well, you're popular today, Mark.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could read one with each eye.
This is the fun part of the business here, listening about all these parks.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
As the commission has probably heard, the department is in the midst of updating the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. We put out a public survey back in late June with a deadline to submit these by the end of July. So the spreadsheet you have there is the results from that public survey. I'll just go through some of the highlights. We received 173 surveys back, both in written and digital form, asking residents where they lived, what neighborhood they lived in, how many times they might visit parks, and then number 3 on the front page there, what parks and facilities that you might feel are needed most in the city. As I mentioned with the Eagle Point brief, walking and biking trails, nature trails, and water access are the top 3 through this process as well. As you go down the list, neighborhood parks, community parks, children's play structures, picnic shelters, are kind of at the top of the list there. So really, the priorities, at least through this survey, are really holding true from what we've seen in 1998 and 2013 as well. 2008. On the second page, number 5, which is kind of nice, we asked what people would rate the overall condition of all Shelton parks, and we had 23 that rated Shelton Parks excellent, and 99 of the respondents rated the facilities in good condition. So good or above was well over 100 of the respondents, and only one that rated them as poor. So I think that it shows, it really shows on what our maintenance staff are being able to provide out there in our city parks. We asked questions about what kind of parks were in excellent shape. You see on 6A there at the bottom of that page, Neelan Park was clearly the highest ranking facility. I think it's obviously the most used park, so it gets a lot of attention by the park staff. And then it's funny that we asked what parks might need more attention, and Neelan Park ranked second in there. So I think that really shows you how busy the park is, because people are really paying attention to whether it's in good shape or bad shape, and willing to voice their opinions on that. Question 8 asked where residents would like to see additional parks in the city. Hillcrest and Angleside were the top 2. Downtown area followed with 3, followed by Mountain View and Springfield Park, Shelton Springs area, and kind of North Cliff. Those were the top respondents, clear and away. We certainly have some property up at North Cliff next to Terrace Heights that is undeveloped, that's been in the city's inventory for some time, and it's you'll see that it's again going to be listed as in the draft Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan for development. Properties like that really are more cost effective because you don't have to go out and purchase the property, you're just developing it at that time. And then second to last page, question 11, basically asked everybody if they had $100,000, where would they allocate it amongst projects within Shelton. Parks and recreation and improvements and maintenance of existing parks was clearing away the top response, followed pretty closely thereafter by acquisition of parkland and open space and acquisition development of walking and biking trails. So no real surprises there. On the back page, as far as programming, we asked what kind of programs the community would most like to see in the community, and really youth programs of any kind really were at the top of the list, whether it's after-school programs, youth sports, day camps, and things like that. We're really at the top of the list for activities that people would like to see in the community.
Okay.
Any questions regarding the survey at this time?
It's really interesting to see what the priorities are.
Hunting and fishing.
Yes, we also gave the community an opportunity to provide input or add answers in where they didn't see the answer they would like. So yeah, you get some interesting comments. You have the opportunity. People take the opportunity to voice their opinion on other projects like streets and things like that within these surveys. So we've included those in this synopsis for you as well.
Okay, very good.
Well, it looks like a lot of these requests will be met when Shark is successful with their project. So I think that's going to be a great thing too. Okay, perfect. I see. There's a request for a pickleball.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
One, right?
It's
a one person request.
It's a growing activity in our world, absolutely, and we're able to provide that down at the transit center, as you know now.
Yes.
But we don't have any outdoor public courts at this point.
So is outdoor racquetball the same as pickleball, or is it the same court? No, because racquetball you have to have the.
Yeah, you have the walls and stuff. The second page I gave you is kind of the draft action plans for our upcoming Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. So these are really the projects that come out of the survey results, out of the planning that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee has put forth, and the goals that are trying to be met through this comprehensive plan. So this is a draft right now. We hope to have you the entire draft plan by the end of the year for your review and then adoption sometime after the first of the year. We did pare this down a little bit from the last plan, but a lot of the projects are the same. With the passage of the Park District in 2010 and then pro-rationing quickly thereafter in 2013, we really haven't been able to address a whole lot of opportunities in that 2008 plan. The couple of the projects that were completed is the Teresa Johnson Trail, referred to in that last plan as the Shelton Creek Trail, and then a dog park. And really those are born out of community efforts and not strictly out of the Parks Department. So you see Callahan Park and the continued refurbishment of that facility after the restroom and playground and basketball court and picnic shelter and all those things were completed. We still have some amenities that are lacking up there. That parking lot really needs to be addressed. We don't have ADA accessibility out of that parking lot, storm drainage, things like that, and the ball field needs some attention. We've got an old irrigation system. The infield could be amended and things like that. Neighborhood parks come in kind of at the next 4 slots there. These were also quickly identified as priorities right behind the trails and water access areas. So identifying Johnson Park and the needs of the community and the neighborhood up there. The Hillcrest area lacking a neighborhood park. Our existing park plan lists a half-mile service radius for neighborhood parks, so everybody should live within a half-mile service radius per our standards. So that's where Hillcrest is really lacking up in that area. Northcliff, as I said, Northcliff is lacking. We've got an undeveloped park site, but if it's developed, it can meet that half-mile service radius. And then the Angleside, kind of Beverly Heights, Meridian Park area in the southwest corner of town is lacking that neighborhood park category as well. And then you move on down through the list, water access, which will be partially provided by Eagle Point. Doesn't necessarily provide great swimming opportunities, which I think is what a lot of people would like to see in this plan, whether that's a priority or not, because that brings about a lot of liability issues and maintenance issues and costs as well, but that can be addressed when the opportunities arise. A community park, larger facility. One thing that's addressed is possibly expanding Neelan Park into a larger facility to help accommodate the large groups that we're getting down there, and also preserve some of the forested hillsides that we have close to Neelan Park. And then developing Overlook Park as for the design that's been around for a number of years, over 20 years, yeah. On the back are trail priorities, and these will be morphed into all of the priorities throughout the plan. We developed a trails plan in 2013 as a result of the 2008 Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan, so we could have a better idea of what kind of linkages could be provided throughout the community and what people wanted. So at the top of the list is expansion of the Huff and Puff Trail. We've got vast areas of property, watershed property up around the Huff and Puff Trail now. It's a tremendously popular facility used by all segments of the population, and I think the opportunity to expand that and provide transportation linkages to kind of the northeast, as well as just recreational opportunities, utilizing that would be a popular decision. Linkages between along Goldsboro Creek. Mentioned in here is the potential for along the railway along Goldsboro Creek, Angleside to downtown, Capitol Hill to downtown, really linking those neighborhoods and important amenities throughout town. Callahan Park, a loop trail there. We have a wooded area that could have a little loop trail in there just for another recreational element in Callahan Park itself. Hopefully with the future development up around Goose Lake and the potential up there to provide a loop trail and some exercise and walking amenities up there. And that side of town would be a priority as well. Shelton Point, David Shelton's Pear Orchard, potential for Power Line Trail heading out towards MCRA to the east and linking up with the county's trails plan, which a lot of these that kind of head out to the state limits would certainly provide. And then the Spring Road, maybe up to Sanderson Way, continuing pedestrian access up to there, where it's really quite popular up at Sanderson Field for people walking and accessing that property up there. So, as I said, this will be refined, be given to the commission in a draft form for your perusal and review here by the end of the year.
Okay, I just have two comments.
Please.
Number one is that the Shelton Point Park, David Shelton's Pear Orchard is going to happen. It's on the horizon, so that will be amazing when that is completed. And then the rail to trail on abandoned Simpson Railway grade, there is a conflict there with the efforts to acquire the rails. And I would like to point out that the rail is not abandoned, it's temporarily out of service. There's a difference.
Absolutely.
This is a great report, Mark.
It is great. Thank you.
Gives us hope for lots of fun stuff for the Shelton
That's
area.
right. That's right.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Thanks, I
Any other
appreciate it.
questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Now we are going to have Acting Public Works Director Craig Gregory to come up and talk to us about the Operations Public Works and the projects. You're going to do that all in one, aren't you?
We are going to do it all.
Okay, great. And the projects.
Hopefully we can keep ours as quick as Mark and Jason have done, but we've got quite a bit of information to get through for you. We'll start with just general staff operations for 2016, and I am going to stop after each one of these, especially when we get to the capital projects part. If you do have any questions, I've also got interim city engineer Bob Towser here. If I can't answer any of the questions, hopefully he can give us a hand in trying to answer them. And if between the two of us we can't, we will certainly get back to you with an answer.
Okay.
First of all, with just Public Works operations with staff, the Water Department staff had a very busy year so far with a lot of capital projects that they assisted in, including Lake Boulevard with a new water line up there, the Angleside Booster Pump Station, Upper Mountain View, which kept them very busy throughout the year. They also, with a new GPS unit, they went through the Angleside area and located all of the water valves and got a GPS coordinates on all of those. That helps us in the future if we have a water main break. We're not searching around in the middle of the night when it's dark trying to find those. We can just pop those into the GPS unit and be standing on top of it to get that shut down, which was great for them to get through that. They'll continue to work through in the future to get through all of town and put all of those GPS coordinates on the valves. The other thing that they had spent a lot of time on this year was fire hydrant flow testing and painting. We've been working with the fire department to get all of those color coordinated with the international symbols, the colors, which has taken quite a bit of time to get through that. We've never had that in the past, and they got through that all this year. So they have done a great job in getting through that, which should really help the fire department moving forward.
Can you tell us which colors are for what?
The red hydrants are 0 to 499 gallons per minute, which are very low. The orange is 500 to 999. The green is 1,000 to 1499, and the blues are 1,500 gallons a minute plus.
Okay.
So that gives those the firefighters out there in the field when they roll up to a fire, if they've got one that might be orange and another one a block away that might be green, they're probably going to want to hook up to that green one, and this way they'll know.
It's a good idea.
Which we've had some issues in the past with that.
Okay.
That concludes the water department. The wastewater plant has been also very busy. Some of the major projects, they had the MBR water, reclaim water tank expansion, which tied the original reclaim water tank to the chlorine contact chamber, which there's two of, one of which we are not using at this time. So we cut a 3-foot hole in the 1-foot thick concrete wall to tie the two tanks together. And what that did for us is we've had some issues with Washington State Patrol in the past of using more than their allotment of water, reclaimed water, to flood their training track out at the State Patrol Academy. And when that happens, we have to turn on the water valve with potable water from the city and fill that tank to go out to them, which ends up costing the wastewater plant quite a bit of money paying for regular water to be sending out there to flood a track. So this helped us, gained us about 2/3 capacity in that tank out there. And that was budgeted for $10,000, and project should be completed for right there close to $10,000 this year, and should be completed by about the middle of November. The other thing, the big one out at the MBR plant and the main plant, the wastewater treatment plant was scheduled to put VFDs on all of their fine screens to keep them. We've got an issue with them starting and stopping, and the VFDs were supposed to help with that quick start and stop operation, which we've had a lot of issues with. The original budget was $40,000. The staff came up with a cheaper soft start to install on those. And instead of $40,000 to equip the 6 fine screens, 4 at the main plant, 2 at the MVR plant, they got that done for just under $5,000. So that was great news. Those guys did a great job in researching that and coming up with a different way to get that done, to save a pretty good pile of money. Some of the other things that we had go on in the wastewater treatment plant, we had an issue with our biosolids dryer making an awful lot of noise. Down at the end of Fairmont Street, we were getting some complaints from some citizens up there. We touched base with L&I and got an industrial hygienist out there to measure the noise frequency to see where we were at. And while he was there helping us with that, he informed us that we were on an L&I target list to be checked in the next couple of months. And he suggested that we ask for a voluntary inspection of the wastewater treatment plant. We ended up moving forward with that. Ended up coming up with about $44,000 in fines that we would have had to pay for if we wouldn't have done that voluntary inspection. So all of those have been fixed, puts us off of the target list for at least 2 years, and we can ask for another voluntary inspection at the end of 2 years. So we're going to continue to do that and stay in contact with them.
Yeah.
So
Good idea.
we not only did that with the wastewater treatment plant, that also moved into the other facilities. I know Kurt Johnson did this facility and some others. We also did the city shop through a voluntary inspection. So we had our first lab audit down at the wastewater treatment plant in 8 years. We've had a lot of regulations that have changed. There's a different group that is now administering those lab audits, and we had the first one in, like I said, 8 years a couple of months ago. We're still working through that to get final acceptance of that. We had 2 of our general operators get their level 2 wastewater treatment plant certifications, which is really helping us out down there. We only had 2 operators that were certified to run the plant. At this point, we now have 4, so we've got some pretty good coverage down there, which really helps us out. And those guys have done a great job. That's not the easiest test to get through. There's about a 17% passer rating on those tests, and those guys have done a great job on getting through those. We also are working on, right now, a policy to accept outside biosolids. We've got a couple of agencies that have already contacted us with the spray site out at Webb Hill closing. We've got some, Mason County Public Works is asking to bring biosolids to us, and we've also been contacted in the last month by McClary to bring theirs to us. So we're looking at trying to get that taken care of and coming up with a fee schedule to get that done. We'll be bringing that forward, I believe, on the 7th of November for a touch. With sewer collections, which is now part of Street and Storm, those guys have been able to get a lot more done in the collection side, which are the trunk lines out in the fields leading all of that solid waste down to the treatment plant. We haven't done much cammering and cleaning in the past, and this year we are slated to do Basin 7 for cleaning and cammering, and that's the area up around the Wallace-Nealon complex. So that'll be good to get out there and see what's actually in the ground and what issues we have. With Storm, we got a new overflow tying the pond at C Street, which is where all of the stormwater from East Mountain View goes right now. And last year, we had an incident where with some of the heavy rains, we got very close to flooding out a house last year with taking some of that. Most of East Mountain View is dry wells, just holes in the ground for stormwater to go. We have some serious issues with those. This gives us the ability with tying this into Olympic Highway North and the trunk line that comes downtown to start to expand our storm facilities up there in that Mountain View area to eliminate some of those dry wells. And the budgeted original budget for the C Street overflow was $45,000. It is complete at this point, and The only invoices we're waiting for are a couple of asphalt invoices, but looks like the project's going to come in right around $30,000. So
Great.
the crews have done a great job on
Very
getting
good.
that done. We also used in street the TBD money that was allocated to street. Really worked wonders this year. Got a lot done. We paved about 12 blocks of residential streets this year. Cost for material was right around $80,000 to do those 12 blocks. So it was a great use of the taxpayer funds to get some of those residential streets done. And next year, we're scheduled to do even a little bit more than that. So that'll be good. Another one was the Brockdale walking path repaving. We received an AWC grant, WCIA, grant to cover $35,000 of that project. The original budget was for 63, and we came in right around 60, just under 60 to get that done. And that is just, we've heard nothing but good things about that Brockdale project up there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the trees you planted, the maple trees?
The trees, and we've got some, the pads got poured for the 4 benches that are going up there to line that. And yeah, that just, that project couldn't have gone better for us.
Beautiful. Yep.
We also got the Domino's Alley, which has been a huge maintenance nightmare for us. That's the alley that runs between, behind Domino's and behind the gas station down there. We were approached by one of the property owners in that area that butts up to the alley, and they said they would donate to that project. So what we did was we went to the other property owners that abutted that alley and asked them if they would be interested in paving it also and contributing to that. We ended up getting $3,500 donated towards that. And the total project was at just under $4,600. So we got most of that donated to pay for, and it takes a huge maintenance issue off of our hands for Public Works staff. In solid waste, we have been spending a lot of time looking at the expansion of our utility, which we are going to be moving forward with and bringing back to the commission later on next month, and talking about that through the budget process of moving forward with that. With EM&R, they have implemented a new tracking system for vehicle usage. We've had some issues in the past with guessing on percentages of equipment used throughout all of the departments. There's been some discrepancy in who we've been billing to and what they've actually been using. So now it would be tracked, the utilization of those vehicles will be tracked down to the hour. So we'll have a pretty good idea of how to bill those out at the end of the year. We also are almost finished up with a new fuel system down at the shop, which will also gives maintenance reminders, updates for vehicles, tracking. It is, we have been in the dark ages with our fuel system. It's still a DOS-based fuel system that we get printouts from and have to turn those into finance for billing, and it's a nightmare for staff down there. But this new system is going to be great for us. The budget was $58,000. And it came in at $57,500, so just about right on schedule with that one. And that's it for Public Works staff. Do you have any questions before we move to the projects?
I just wanted to say that at the conference that I attended last week, I was able to share both that we had passed our transportation benefit district and were able to do additional funding with that. So we got great kudos for that, for our citizens moving forward with that. And then also Department of Health and Department of Commerce were thrilled with the hearing that we may start taking the biosolids from other communities. And RSDA also weighed in on that too. They were really happy to find out that we were looking at that, and it, kind of verified the value of the grants that we were given to take care of that issue.
Good job.
So moving into Public Works projects, these are a little more difficult. So I'm going to slow down on these ones just a little bit. If you do have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. If you do have any of those, we have had some difficulty in navigating through these. Myself, Bob, all of the staff for Public Works has been working diligently on these, but they have been difficult to get through. The documentation has been suspect. The funding has also been an issue. So we will try and get through these the best that we can and give you the information that we can at this time. So back to Lake Boulevard. This was a 6,400 lineal foot paving project that started at the bottom of Pioneer Way at basically Olympic Highway South and extended all the way to the end of Lake Boulevard at the city limits. This project was funded through TIB and REAP monies. The design of this project was almost $1.5 million, and total construction was at $3.84 million. And we are, as we discussed earlier, looking for final acceptance of that one. But it was a great project, came in under budget and on time, and everybody from engineering to Public Works crews did a great job on that one. And Tappaney did a great job, who was the contractor on that one also.
Crick, will you please, for the audience, explain what TIB and REIT are?
The REIT monies are the real estate excise tax, which fluctuates with our housing market. And the Transportation Improvement Board, I'm going to let Bob maybe explain Transportation Improvement Board a little more. I think he's more familiar with that than I am.
And it's just, sometimes we use acronyms, and
Yes.
it's we don't
We have
know.
an awful lot of these.
I know. I finally
explain
know
them
what
the best
these
that we
mean. Yeah, so if you could just say what the acronyms mean.
There's not much more I can say. Transportation Improvement Board is a funding agency that uses state funds that sometimes they get federal funds that pass through local programs and administer it to the local agencies.
Thanks, Bob. The next one on our list is Basin 3. I know we've had some discussion in the past. We have not wanted to move forward with this project the way it is funded at this time. The one thing that I think is important to relay to the Commission is that this has been active since 2012. We have spent $411,000 plus on this project for design. At this time, the Public Works staff cannot figure out where that has been paid out of. We're still investigating that, trying to figure out where that funding source has come from. We do have some grants, State Capital Fund of $1.45 million, and the DOT grant of almost $2 million, $1.97 million. And there are some loans also associated with this project that have been secured. But it's my understanding that the Commission did not want to move forward with that project. And we've got another issue with that is that the cost estimate has been updated, and the new cost estimate that was done in October of this year was $7.62 million, And right now, with total funding, we've only got about $606 million to do that project. So leaves us almost $1 million short with that one. So we will have to try to find some other funding sources, whether that's 100% grant, but we just don't want to run into the same situation we're running into with some of these other projects, where this one has been out there and being billed against since 2012, and we're a little over 400,000 into it at this point. So eventually we're going to have to, at a staff level, try and find some funding sources for that to move forward with. Any questions on that one?
No, I don't.
Commissioner Moore?
No.
Okay.
No, I know we've discussed this, and this is the project that the mayor has been trying to come up with additional grants. I know that we've put a fair amount of money into hiring people to go before the legislature, and Dave Arbonne Associates did some work for us, so we were able to get several $1 million thanks to his efforts. And then we also had the Sewer Funding Coalition, which I don't think we haven't ever received an estimate of what the money was for that. So I guess we still wait for more funding for that. And what is the deadline for that one before we have to turn down the grants and the loan that we've been awarded?
I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
We can certainly get back to you on that.
Okay, it seems like it's soon. It seems like we have a limited time according to what we've been told.
Yeah, and that is one of the concerns that we have with some of these projects, that they have been partially funded already and moving forward, but we'll discuss those a little later on.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, do you happen to know?
I thought it was 2018, but I don't know for sure. I'll have to check that and get back to you.
Okay. And that was for the project to be complete?
I believe so.
Okay.
The next one is the Water System Comprehensive Plan update. At this time, DOH has, every 6 years, we have to update our water comp plan. It is due for a draft to be to them by February 10th of 17, with a final draft May 10th of 17. And at this time, we advertised for a consultant. We got one submittal back from Corollo. We will be having a meeting with Public Works staff, DOH, and Corollo to define a scope of work to start to move forward with that. But at this point, the estimated cost could be anywhere between $50,000 up to several hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what DOH is looking for out of that scope of work. We're not sure at this point. We haven't seen any funding sources for that comprehensive plan. There, as far as we can see, was no funding in 2016, and there was no budget worksheet done at this time to place any funds towards that in 2017. So that may be something that we have to think about funding through the budget process.
Okay.
Any questions with that one? Commissioner McDowell?
Nope.
We get into the projects that we've got out there at this point. The first one is Upper Mountain View Pressure Zone. This was a very large project that first started out. There were quite a few pieces to it, with phase one, which was the upgrade to well 3 and the 400,000 gallon elevated tank out near Mason County Public Works. And with phase 2, which was a 1 million gallon ground level tank up at the intersection of Spring Road and Wallace Nealon. And also a new well to replace well 1 to be drilled. A 500,000 gallon per minute booster pump station to supply water to Upper Mountain View pressure zone and the Lower Mountain View pressure zone. New transmission main to allow well 4 to be connected to Lower Mountain View. And a PRV station. Johns Prairie. Thanks, Bob. At this point, phase 2 is 80% completed for design work. Phase 1 is complete. We had startup earlier in the month to put water into the 400,000 gallon elevated tank out at Mason County Public Works. Everything went as planned with that one. Unfortunately, at this time, we have no customers to put on that line. We have shut down that line and isolated it at Tarragon, which is the street Parsley Sage across from the high school. So at this time, that tank and that line are full, but they're isolated from the system and we're not moving water. There's some talks with Public Works staff, the water staff, of what to do with it at this point without being able to move water. There have been talks about just draining the entire system and leaving it dry at this time until we get some customers on board. That project was extremely over budget. It came in with phase 1 spending so far at almost $6.7 million of the total loan of $9 million. It left about $2.3 million left out there to complete phase 2, which we decided not to move forward with. At this time, there wouldn't have been enough money anyway, even if we would have wanted to move forward with that. The estimate for completion of phase 2 was almost $5.9 million. So we had a pretty good deficiency in funding source there if we would have decided to move forward with that. We have some other issues with Upper Mountain View without having any customers on that and moving water. Obviously, like I said, we're going to potentially drain that system. And it's going to be difficult to get customers onto that line. We've got, which we found in the last month, a latecomers agreement with Washington State Patrol. They put in the main line from Tarragon out to State Patrol so that we could provide water to them without the tank. We installed that line. That line was, the cost was about $2.6 million that was paid for by Washington State Patrol. They then wanted a latecomers agreement for anybody that hooked up to that line to pay their portion of that. We did install that. We ended up having to turn that line off because we couldn't provide pressure to Washington State Patrol. So that line sat there for a couple of years? About 2.5 years before we got the tank built and water back in that line. The issue with the latecomers agreement is it was never finalized, wasn't recorded, and it is in Washington State Patrol's court at this point to get us back a draft to record that. We are in discussions with Washington State Patrol on who is going to record that. There are about 400 parcels that need to be recorded against. The total cost for that was around $40,000. Around $40,000 to do that, to record all 400 of those. We're not sure exactly at this point who is going to pay for that. There are some issues with also the way our city staff calculated, within engineering, calculated the latecomers agreement fees. Those are suspect at this point also of how we came up with those numbers. Some parcels are very high because it was off of the property frontage, the zoning, and the acreage for those. So we're taking another look at those to see if there was a better way to calculate those on what would be basically water consumption. But we're still working through that. That's a work in progress at this time. But we do have some properties up there that could be hooked up to that system that is most likely going to be cost prohibitive for them to do moving forward with that latecomers agreement. And that latecomers agreement stays in place for 15 years, 20 years. So that's going to be very difficult moving forward. The other issue that we have with that one is we've got a loan forgiveness of a little over $2 million that we have to satisfy some qualifications through DOH to get that loan forgiveness. We are, between Bob and myself, have been discussing that with DOH of what those requirements are. They were a little unclear of what satisfied that loan forgiveness. I think we've got a little more clarity at this point, and basically it is one of the water systems, Mason County Public Works, Washington State Patrol, a couple of the housing complexes that are up there. But what that would mean is they have to write us a letter stating that they are disconnecting their well. They don't have to decommission it, they just have to disconnect it. So they could keep it for like an irrigation system, but we will need to get that taken care of before we close out this project to get the loan forgiveness on this one. At this point, we have been in discussions with Washington State Patrol of getting them hooked up and disconnecting their well. They are having some issues with funding to get the on-site construction done of their water system so that they can hook up at this point. We're thinking that could be soon, but that's been a little unclear also with them. They're having some issues with funding as well moving forward with that one. So we are doing everything we can possibly do to get that grant forgiveness and make sure that we meet the guidelines that we need to get that. Bob, can you think of anything that I missed with that one?
There, I had a question about that. I keep wondering, so Washington State Patrol paid a large portion to extend the line out there, and then we had an agreement to supply the water, but there was no reciprocal agreement to actually connect to the water system from Washington State Patrol?
That's correct. Yeah, we did not require them to connect. We gave them the agreement that we would supply water,
Yeah.
and by a certain date, we were required to provide water, but no, we did not give them a requirement to actually hook up once we could provide water.
Okay.
That's kind of crazy.
Yes, it is.
'Cause you provide water, but there's no hookup.
We're,
I mean,
we're a little unclear at the staffing level at this point of how that was missed. But we are trying to rectify that situation to the best of our ability at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next one, do you have any more questions on that one before I move forward? I know it's a little tough to understand all of those, but if you have any more questions, we can certainly try to answer those for you, either here or if you come up with anything in the future, we certainly can.
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that obviously there have been some issues that we were not aware of. And so I do applaud moving forward staff trying to identify what we need to remedy, and we'll do the best that we can.
And that's our goal at this point moving forward. We want to be as transparent, whether it be good news or bad news. We want to keep you informed on what that is. And we are working with staff at this point to fix some of our problems that we have had in the past. And communication has been a big issue that we are trying to fix at this point. And communication not only with the staff at City Hall, but also interaction with the crews down at Public Works. They have a lot of good input, and I'm not sure we've utilized that in the past. So we are certainly trying to work on the issues that we have and the challenges that we have moving forward. One other thing that with that one was the rehab of the well that I missed. We brought forward a proposal to rehab well 1 instead of drill a new well with the issues we've been having with that well. At this time, we've asked the commission at one point to fund that. Looks like it was funded at about $250,000 for the rehab of the well, dropping the pump 42 feet and reperforating the casting at $35,000. At this point, with the estimates that we've done, we're not sure that that funding level is enough. But we are certainly checking into it. We've had some calls into Arcadia Well Drilling to find out if we've got enough money, if we asked for enough money to do that. We will be bringing that back here shortly in the next couple of weeks to let you know if we do have enough funding or if we're going to have to ask for more money to complete that project.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
One more. I keep going back to this one. With this project, no, not with this one, moving forward with the other ones. The next one that we have is Angleside Booster Pump Station. We did start up on that earlier also in the month. This was a project that has been delayed several times. Was scheduled to be completed summer of 15. Was delayed for quite a few different reasons. First of which, we had some issues when we first put the booster pump station up in place. We were through a valve that fills the tank from the downtown booster pumps. We could not fill the tank through the valve that was in place. We tried to run it through a 6-inch line to try to fill the tank, and we were unsuccessful to do that with the valve that was in place that Murray Smith and Associates designed. And we had a very large water hammer up in that area and also shut down the booster pump down. One of the booster pumps that was running, only one of them was running at the time. There are 2 down there to supply that area. That booster pump came to a grinding halt and actually shut down. So we knew we had some major issues up there with how to fill the tank. Originally, it was designed to fill through the booster pump station, which also has 6-inch lines in it, so we knew we had an issue right off the bat with that design. Staff went back to MSA. They revised their design and suggested putting in a motor-operated valve on the 12-inch trunk line that fills the tank. We did that with city funds and city staff in the water department and continued to fill with just that valve open. But we knew moving forward that we may have some issues with that design. With the startup last month, we confirmed those suspicions the booster pump station, which is a skid-mounted booster pump station that was provided by EFI, which is a company out of Illinois. They did start up. They were successful. They moved water through their booster pump station out of the tank and circulated water back through into the tank, and then we isolated off of the tank and put water into the actual system, and their booster pump station seemed to work just fine. We have closed out that account with them and paid them their remaining 10% of that that they had coming to them. After we went through the startup of the booster pump station, we then tried to manually close the valve as we were filling the tank. We drew the tank down, tried to backfill through the booster pump station by turning the valve down. We got the valve about 3/4 of the way shut manually before the pressures in the system spiked, and we had to abort the startup. So we've got some serious issues up with that system. So far, we've spent almost $1.7 million up on that project. MSA has come back to us and suggested some modifications to the design, but have also asked to go back under contract to do some of that work. But some of the suggestions have been a pressure relief valve down by the shop in Loop Field, fiber optics to and power to the motor operated valve that's in place, the automation of the generator system that's up there. Right now there was a mobile system that was supposed to be just put into place. At this point, if the power went out up there with the valve closed, we would just be drawing out of the system, which would be very bad for that system. Be very detrimental to the homes up in that area and the water system. The costs of the modification to the design look like they're going to be very expensive. At this point, we can't give you a solid number. We do think it's going to be somewhere around $250,000 to do the additional work. And at that point, we're still not sure that that's going to work at this point. So if we decide to move forward with that, we're unsure and inconfident of the overall system working how it was designed. It was designed to pull the water down. Right now, we're only using about 5 feet of elevation in the top part of that tank. We were looking to pull that down to around 20 feet, but at this point, we're not sure that it's going to work. So we've got some more investigating to do to figure out if we can come up with an idea to make that actually function how it was designed.
How important is that tank up there? On a scale of 1 to 10, use-wise? Be honest, tell me.
It depends on what you're actually asking. If you're asking how it fulfills a requirement in the water comp plan, which was a water deficiency, if it worked properly, it would meet that goal.
Okay.
Outside of that, it's a 0. We have never, in at least the staff that we have at this point, about 25 to 30 years of experience in the water department, we've never turned on the 2 booster pump station or the 2 booster pumps downtown at one time. We can provide 1,200 gallons a minute to the system with 1 booster pump, 2,400 with both of them, and even in fire events, we have never had an issue where we have had to turn on both pumps at one time.
So you don't have to answer this one if you don't want to. There's a possibility of not needing this then. And what it would be if we spent this money and it still didn't work on a water system that's in the zeros of being needed?
There's great concern that this wouldn't function as designed even if we do the additional work. It is a very big concern.
And that's a big chunk of money to.
It's a big chunk of
If
money.
you had 100%, this will work, I would say, okay, go for it. But when there's not a possibility, that's a big chunk of money to be spending for something that maybe not will work.
It most definitely is.
Yeah.
And at this point,
Concern.
at least from my point of view, just because we've spent the amount of money that we have spent on this, I'm not sure it's the best idea to throw good money at bad money at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
There are some other options with that we have looked at and we will continue to look at, whether that would be if another agency was interested in purchasing the booster pump station from us and we could recoup any of the money. There are some thoughts of maybe using some of the equipment that's in the booster pump station in other areas of the water system. So we are looking at that at the staff level.
Okay.
And I remember that we had increased the size of the generator. Is the generator something else that we could possibly sell to recoup part of that money?
I'm not sure that we want to get rid of the generator. It does serve a purpose at this point. We do have well 3 that we could hook up to and run that if we did have a power outage. So at this point, the generator, I'm not sure we would get enough out of it to make that beneficial to us with the way we can use it now.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure that would be the best use of that. We do have a function for the generator.
So the difficulties with the Ingleside booster pump station are a result of a poor design or the wrong design or the wrong equipment? I guess I'm just really unclear still as to how this happened. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, and maybe it looks
Go ahead,
like Ryan
I
wants
think
to.
it's a mix. So right now, if we could get it to work, how often would we use this though?
The only time we would ever use this is if we were exercising it to keep it so that it did function if we ever needed it, but at this point, there's not a use for it.
Okay.
So the idea initially was that we would be able to decrease the amount of, we'd actually be able to use the storage in the tank. What was designed does not accomplish that, and what was designed, frankly, doesn't work. It's a mix of the things that you asked about. At this point, though, we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to do next. We haven't tried to unravel how this happened yet because we want to be able to come to a solution.
Okay.
I can assure you that the conversations that we've had, not just with Craig and Bob, but also bringing on the rest of the water department, we've had some very good conversations. We've brought Glenn from Parametrics in. We've had a lot of support from outside. And this is not just our staff saying it won't work. This is literally everybody that has touched it in the last 4 weeks telling us that it won't work.
I think also part of the issue with this one, before we ever went to design, I think there was a problem with the interpretation of the water comp plan. There were some pieces in the water comp plan that dealt with deficiency. There was another tank that was proposed up in that area. There was another water source that wouldn't have necessarily dealt with the deficiency, but it certainly would have given us system-wide. Right now, all of our wells are on the north side of town. Would have given us one on the south side of town in case we ever did have a major earthquake, something go seriously wrong. So I think also with a mix, like Ryan said, of a bunch of different things, I also think the interpretation, in my opinion, of the water comp plan and how we were going to utilize that was an issue. There were some other things that were brought forward by staff many years ago when we started these talks of whether this was going to work, whether it was needed, that I think we could have looked at better solutions that served us in a better way.
Very good.
Now, to the projects that we've got out there that have been sitting on the shelf for quite some time that we will have to look at through the budget process. We've got Evergreen Safe Routes, Evergreen Elementary Safe Routes to Schools, which is basically a project, new sidewalks on Coda and Franklin Street from 7th to 12th, and a couple of connections on the side streets at 12th and 8th, tying those two streets together. And this was originally a fully funded grant from Safe Routes to Schools in the amount of $497,000. At this point, we haven't spent any of that money, which is a very good thing. At this point, the funding looks like it's around $400,000 short to complete that, with storm drainage and some additional paving of the road edges. And we've also got some survey and elevation issues to deal with also. It's a pretty flat area downtown. In that area, we'll have some serious drainage issues if we don't address them. Bob and myself met with local programs who administers this grant. They had some serious issues with us sitting on the money that we've got out there at this point. We will have to write a letter to their headquarters asking for this grant money to be reinstated, and we're not sure that they're going to be willing to do that at this point. So if we decide to move forward with this, we'll have to address that issue with them, basically ask for forgiveness why we haven't moved forward with this in a timely fashion, and see if they will give us that grant money to move forward with.
And why wasn't it moved forward in a timely fashion?
We're not sure, Kathy. I
So
guess
another question mark.
I guess is
Uncertainty.
my best answer to you is we've been trying to figure that out, and we're not sure at this point.
It's almost like these projects we get the grant money, these projects are put out there, and then they just get pushed back, thinking the grant money is going to be there forever.
Yeah, and the issue with that is every year that you delay those projects, the cost just escalates.
Right.
Then you end up with deficiencies in that funding, and you've got some serious problems moving forward.
So even if we are able to extend the grant, we're still by about half underfunded?
Close to that, yes.
Okay. And so would there possibly be a modification to the language of the project to scale back the project? Or have talks gone that far yet?
It doesn't look like that's going to be possible. We did talk briefly about even getting away from curb and gutter
Yeah.
and just doing a flat sidewalk. The other issue that we've got with that, which would save us quite a bit of money, the other issue that we've got with that is every place in the downtown area that we've got with flat sidewalks, folks pull up and park on them. You
Oh,
can't get by
yes.
them anyway. So we're not sure that we want to move
Yeah,
forward with a
that's true.
project that we can't do right for the funding that we have.
And I did suggest going to the school district to see if there would be some help since it's schools.
We have a meeting set up just to put them on notice that they had agreed to participate with some education around this project, and we need to let them know, since they're a partner on this project, where we are. It is important to note, I guess some of the information that Craig and Bob were able to get last week from local programs, how that went through, that they pulled our funding. So when they notified us and what action or inaction we had that resulted in that.
Well, the timing of it was a big issue. We've also had some issues with quarterly billing that we haven't been doing, tracking that we haven't been doing. Those were the two big ones.
When did they ask us for that information?
Local program, when they, I don't know if they did, I'm not aware of them asking, it's a requirement of a grant.
They did send us something about quarterly billing about 8 months ago, though. I remember seeing something that they did contact us and told us that we need to be doing that. We're not quite sure why that wasn't going on, or how that got missed at this point. And like I said before, some of these projects are a little foggy. This one is the easiest one to get through because we haven't spent any money on it and it hasn't been sitting on the shelf for an extended period of time. It's been just in the last couple of years. We've got some other ones that get a little less clear. They're very unclear at this point.
So back to the school, I'm not talking like education type stuff. I'm talking like
I get,
cash.
so without asking them on camera right now before we've
Oh.
spoken to them,
Okay.
they are our partner on this project,
Yes.
and they have agreed, their partnership so far is that they are going to provide education around that project, and we have a plan, we have a meeting scheduled with Superintendent Apostle this week to let him know on our end where we are.
Okay, very good.
I believe that public health is also involved in this. Oh. Boy, Craig, it's tough.
Well, it doesn't get any easier with the next two,
Oh, no.
unfortunately.
I'm hoping you're going to finish up with something with good news.
Are we going to have to extend the 2-hour? The 2-hour limit for a meeting, for commission meeting? It's like 12 minutes to 4.
We'll be pretty close.
We'll be pretty close.
Okay, we'll wait till we get,
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it.
yeah, okay.
Downtown Creeks is the next one. This project has been sitting out there since 2007. This was a federal transportation program grant. And at this point, the city has billed against that grant a little better than $63,000 for design. The design monies that were set aside for this were just over $75,000. The construction funding for Downtown Creeks would be an additional just over $354,000 that is provided in the grant. Unfortunately, the last construction estimate from October of 2014 was $483,000. We're anticipating that that is much higher at this point. We've had so many different layers of this one that we were having at the staff level even a hard time keeping everything straight with the consultants that have come on board. We started with Gray and Osborne. They did quite a bit of work towards this and billed against the grant. We discontinued that design consultant and then moved to RH2. We stuck with RH2 for about 6 months, from what I understand, before we canceled that contract also. From our knowledge, the best that we can find, we came at the end of 2015 and asked the commission for around $100,000. Was it 100, Bob, that we found? 50 towards design and 50 towards the construction out of the TBD money to go towards this project to keep it moving. But at this point, those funds look like they are very short to a decent estimate, which I would rather, we would like to not give you a whole lot of numbers that we're estimating, but in this it's very difficult. So we do ask that you don't hold us to these estimates by any means whatsoever. But at this time, to finish up the design, looks like it's another 80.
For construction and 50 for design.
So even using the funding that you have already granted Public Works to move forward with this, the $100,000, we would need an additional at least $130,000 to move forward with this project. And again, this all hinges on us, again, going to local programs and writing their headquarters a letter explaining why we've been sitting on this project since 2007. We would have to come up with a budget, a time frame moving forward, and timelines of completing this project, and see if they even give us the funding to move forward. If they don't give us the funding to move forward, or we don't decide to move forward, we are going to have to write them a check for the $63,153 and pay back that grant that has been billed against.
So we've spent that amount on design
That's correct.
already. So we have a design for the project.
The design is not complete.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's more work on the design.
The design,
Maybe 40%. I don't know if it's that far. This is what I found in the files.
so at this point, if we're at 40% or less on design, we're looking at a pretty good chunk of money to move forward with that. Even if we can get RH2 back on board to do the design of that. Otherwise, we would have to go back out to look for another consultant to do that design work.
okay.
And
so
we're not
that's-
sure what that might cost. So at this point, we would need the $100,000 that you already designated towards that, plus another at least $130,000 to complete that. So you're looking at somewhere around $230,000+ to even keep this project moving, if local programs will grant us the opportunity to continue to move on this one.
Okay.
So on a scale of 1 to 10 again, what is this project on a scale for the benefit of our city?
It's got some benefit to it. It's got some ADA ramps
Okay.
that are going to be installed. It opens up the creeks, which I know is
Now
a hope
explain
of.
what open up the creek is.
Basically, the sidewalk panels that are over the creek right now that are sealing it off would be removed, and some kind of open grading would be
Kind
done.
of like what's behind the kind of what's, a little bit is what's behind the building where Neil's Pharmacy is. Over on
Correct.
the other end, there's that grate, so that's basically what that is.
Correct.
Okay.
And in terms of rating the benefit, this one's a little bit different. The last one was specific to the water system, so
Yes.
this one is more of a question for you three in terms of the benefit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any additional questions on Downtown Creeks? And like I said, this is just, it is very, very foggy for us looking at this. It's just not clear. There are so many different layers to this with different consultants that we canceled contracts with and then restarted up with others. And why we did that, we're having a tough time navigating through all of that information at this point. We should be able to get through it.
We're gonna need you to extend.
We're going to need
Yeah.
to extend, so I've never extended a meeting before.
Just make a motion, maybe 15 minutes. Greg?
Sure.
Another
Okay,
15
I'll do
minutes.
that.
Make a motion.
Okay, I move that we extend today's meeting by an additional 15 minutes
Okay. And I
to, to end at 4:15. We'll do.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you.
And I apologize if I didn't apologize in advance that this was going to be such a lengthy
Well, that's
report.
okay.
Well,
We
I
need to
just
know
think
this.
it's so important that we
It is.
identify these issues and work forward, move forward on this. So I'm thinking that on the Downtown Creeks, that it would be difficult to even appeal to local programs because we can't really identify what the holdup was for the project.
That is going to be a very big challenge. And considering that this project is almost 10 years old now, that's going to be difficult.
Okay.
And they have already told us that that is going to be difficult. The one bright spot was the Evergreen Safe Routes. They did tell us that the good thing was that that one hadn't been sitting on the shelf too long, and we hadn't spent any money out of it, and it really wouldn't give the city of Shelton too much of a black eye
Yeah.
if we did kick those funds back to them so that they could give them out to somebody else or move forward with the project. So, moving on to SR3 Park and Ride. This one has been sitting out there since '99. 17 years that this one has been on the shelf that we have been billing against. This one may be even more difficult to get the federal funding pushed back to us. We're not sure at this point how this one is going to go. It's a large amount of money. At this point, we've used almost $700,000 of federal funds for right-of-way and design. The design is almost, was it 90%, Bob? What's that? Oh, thank you, Bob. We've used $411,000 out of the $700,000. Thank you for catching that. And the design, I believe, is around 90% completed. And the right-of-way acquisition for down in that area is getting extremely close. We got an email late last week letting us know that that one is pretty much ready to go. There's some questions for planning and Simpson to move forward with that one, who's going to sign for it, but other than that, it is ready to be recorded. So the land acquisition, the right-of-way, is almost complete.
And that's through DOT. You got the email from DOT?
That was through, do you remember, Bob?
Consultants working with the local agencies
Okay. Okay.
The issue that we do have with this one is the construction budget of $450,000 with $50,000 of city match funds. Again, we're not sure is going to be enough to complete that project. It's unclear at this point what those cost estimates will be. There have been some talks. We met with MTA last week. They are certainly a factor in this moving forward on what their design looks like for an MTA station down at the Park and Ride, what will be paved and what will be done with that facility. But this one is very, very unclear also. It's been a long time that it's been sitting out there. We have been billing a lot against it. We had a difficult time finding the plans that had been sent to us. Actually, we had to have the consultant send them again because we didn't have any kind of copy of those. But moving forward, this one is difficult also. We've got a lot of money out there. We've got a lot of money to continue for construction, and we're not sure local programs is going to let us move forward with it. Bob, can you think of anything else that I missed on that one? I feel like I'm missing something on that one.
Just the appeal to local programs, the institution construction estimated in 2015 dollars and $492,000.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on this one?
No, not at this time. I think I'll have to study this a little more.
And if you do have any, certainly we can try to answer those for you in one way or another,
But
as this becomes a little more clear.
the land transfer is reaching, is close.
It is very close.
And Mason Transit is planning to move forward with their portion of it.
It's on their top three. They have a grant
Yeah.
for park and rides, and it's in their top three things.
The current plans that might show future bus pullouts for MTA.
Uh-huh.
So it's a matter of if they're going to go forward with those or not. We're going to plan on meeting with them as soon as we get that final.
Okay, okay.
We had a preliminary meeting to kind of come back together with them last week.
Okay. Okay.
But you're going to have to figure out why it's been on the shelf for so long.
First, we need to figure out if we can get the money back.
Okay. All right.
And
then we'll
yeah.
figure it out. Okay.
Commissioners, I know this has been difficult. I just want to let you know that moving forward, we are doing everything that we can do to rectify these situations and not leave projects on the shelf. If we say we're going to do something in the future, we're going to try to complete it to the best of our ability within budget. We don't have a whole lot of answers from the past, but we will try to provide them in the future. And I just want to thank Bob for all of the work that he has done on this with being a consultant for us. He has done an absolute outstanding job, and the whole entire staff on this one, trying to find from finance to our public works staff the answers to these in a timely fashion, have done a great job. So
Thank you.
that concludes
Thank
my
you.
report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much. We'll move on to administration final touches.
Couple things. So the parcel that we're trying to procure for the park and ride, the Paratrip Park and Ride, we are getting close. We're going to bring some of that information forward in the next couple weeks, but I wanted to give you an update on that. We did complete the sale of 2125 Washington.
Yay.
The proceeds to the city were $20,700 and some change. So that check, if it hasn't been delivered already, will be coming in pretty shortly. I do want to point out, with regard to this last update, we are going to be very honest, not just with you and staff here, but also with folks around the city, I apologize because I don't know that in the past that staff have been as forthcoming with information as you needed to be to make the correct decisions. We are trying, I think you saw that with the last 3 projects that are still outstanding. We are trying to get ahead of the situations that we've had in the past. Angleside's a good example where we were budgeted roughly $500,000. We're up at 1.7 or so now with the potential of throwing another $300,000 to make it a $2 million project. We want to identify those issues before we move forward. And in looking at the park and ride safe routes and the downtown creeks, we want you to know before we move forward in the budget, which is coming really quickly, that what has been set aside, one, the money we found out last week is not actually there right now. And 2, in order for us to commit to folks here that we're going to be a good fiscal steward of their funds, that you actually need to know that we're not going to come and keep asking you for money for these projects. So Craig and his team have been working really hard for the last couple weeks to get that underway, but we will have more information coming to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Announcement of next meeting is October 31st at 2 p.m. here. And no costumes, please, no masks, no clown costumes, please. Anyway, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.